John is on our staff. He's our HR professional. And even though he sometimes calls me names like he did today, he's still a good guy. Oh, sorry, you're there.
Hi. How are you today?
I'm good.
Good. How are you all today? Good. Thank you all for coming and supporting us. So I want to take this time now to thank our staff, our volunteers, our partners for their tremendous work that has been done this year. As I read through this group, different groups, please stand and stay standing as you're recognized. So let us begin by recognizing our volunteers, including our volunteer board of directors. You are instrumental in expanding our mission beyond our means, and we could not be more grateful. Come on, stand up. Now to our staff. Let's start with those of us who have been here 5 years or less. Stand up. Your fresh perspectives and enthusiasm are vital to our continued growth and success. Thank you. Now, those of you who have been here between 5 and 15 years, you all bring invaluable experience and dedication to our team. Next, we celebrate those who have dedicated 15 to 25 years to SMRLS. Your long-term commitment has been instrumental in shaping our path forward. Finally, we recognize those who have been here with us over 25 years. Your decades of service are a testament to your unwavering commitment to equity and justice for all. For those staff serving 25 years or more, we have a special certificate of appreciation today from Legal Services Corporation. As I call your name, please come to the stage to receive your certificate. A couple of people I know are not here. One is Carla Dish, 36 years of service. Carla is leaving us for a well-earned retirement at the first part of January. Margaret Erickson, 41 years. Margaret is also leaving us at the end of this year. She has been a long-time hotline advocate and has helped countless thousands of our clients in her role for SMRLS. Lisa Hollingsworth, 25 years. You have the right one? Well, it is here, we promise. Laura Melnick, 36 years. You here? Don't see her here. All right. Sotia Polk, 34 years. I figures all the people with the longest terms of service wouldn't be here for this event today, right? I don't know if this person is here. She just came back after a little time out. Jeannie Williams, 33 years. Well, we're batting 1,000 here. Lillian Ejibi, 34 years. Marina Gillard, 33 years. Laura Jelinek, 28 years. Fengta Fetzerat, 26 years. I know Fengta's here. I saw her. Come up here. And Valerie Snyder, 25 years. Seven. At the Fengta, please. Each year, you touch thousands of lives, and our communities are stronger and more resilient for your efforts. Your commitment to doing the right things is what makes SMRLS a force for good, and we look forward to many more years of service together. Let's give one final round of applause for all our staff and volunteers.
Right now, I'd like to invite Brett Olander to the podium. Brett is our board president. We actually went to law school together as well.
Good afternoon, everybody. Jesse and I are going to honor some recipients of the Justice Matters Alliance. First, I'd like to, I always like to start with a quote. And the folks that put this together and watch the time, like Candace, appreciate short quotes, so I will do that. Thurgood Marshall said, "The legal system can force open doors and sometimes even knock down doors, but it cannot build bridges. That job belongs to you and me." And that's what the folks do at SMRLS every day, and that's what we're going to try and acknowledge and recognize today with a couple of, or three recipients. The Justice Matters Alliance recognizes the outstanding contributions of civil legal aid allies for all they do to further the work of SMRLS in serving the people of Southern Minnesota. This year, we have the honor of inducting three: Margaret Erickson, Carla Deesh, and Ken Kerwin, individuals whose dedicated support of civil legal aid has been invaluable to us at SMRLS. I'll read bios of the three recipients, and then we'll have a short story about the third recipient. Margaret Erickson. Is Margaret here? No? Or any of the three?
Unfortunately, they're all busy working.
Okay, all three are busy working, and Margaret's in the Worthington office.
Margaret is in the Worthington office, but I think she's in London right now.
Okay, well, anyway, so here's Margaret's story. Since 1983, Margaret has shown a relentless dedication to justice, touching over 47,000 cases and countless lives. Currently a full-time hotline attorney and supervising attorney for the Worthington office, she has provided legal services to underrepresented communities for over 41 years. Her expertise spans family law, housing instability, senior issues, and public benefit disputes. Margaret's commitment extends beyond the courtroom, actively engaging with local organizations and community groups. Her work has earned her numerous awards and recognition, reflecting her profound impact on the legal community and her clients. Margaret's not here today, and we will accept the award. Pardon? Lara will accept the award on her behalf. So let's clap for Lara and pretend she's Margaret. All right, number two, Carla Deesh. For over 36 years, Carla has been a steadfast pillar of SMRL's mission to provide high-quality legal services to our clients. Her unwavering dedication has not only improved the lives of countless individuals, but has also significantly contributed to the strength and stability of our organization. Carla's presence is a beacon of calm and reassurance, offering support and guidance to both clients and staff. Her commitment to justice, her compassionate approach have made her an invaluable asset to our team, and her impact will be felt for many years to come. Peter? Other one? And last but not least, Ken Kerwin. Many of you remember Professor Kerwin from his time at Mitchell Hamlin Law School, and I remember him better than most. After retiring from a distinguished career in law, teaching at Mitchell Hamlin and serving on various bar and legislative committees, Ken joined SMRLS in early 2020 to assist a Karen family with a successor guardianship. Having previously helped the same family through Mitchell Hamlin, Ken not only aided them again, but also donated 614 hours between 2020 and 2024. He typically assists refugee and immigrant families in obtaining guardianship for disabled loved ones, or helps with contested minor guardianships involving safety issues or interstate custody transfers. Ken's expertise in handling unique guardianship issues has been invaluable for SMRL staff, providing them with insights to guide volunteers. As Ken concludes his volunteer work, we extend our heartfelt thanks for his dedication to serving the underprivileged. And if we just go back a mere 40 years, it was October 15, 1984, when he wrote this note, long paper, certified, and filed. October 15, 1984. It was my long paper. And how would I get choked up over this? I have no idea, but doesn't take much. Anyway, so he was my overseer for my long paper during my last year in law school. I am proud to say it was A work, but he gave me a B+ because it was 2 semesters late. Boom. All right. I was hoping I could see him in person today to thank him for the guidance and the docking of my grade, but I'm unable to, so I'm going to accept this award on his behalf and keep it for myself. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much. I'd now like to introduce representatives from the Ramsey Bar Foundation, Cheryl Dalby, Erica Ryan, and Sabrina Sands. The Ramsey County Bar Foundation has directed 50% of the proceeds of their annual Bench and Bar Gala to SMRL since 2010, raising over $500,000 to support SMRL's work. In addition, they strongly encourage their members to participate in pro bono work that benefits SMRL's clients and our low-income community members. They are a vital partner in the pursuit of equitable access to justice. And on behalf of SMRL's, I want to thank them very much for their ongoing efforts.
Good afternoon. I'm Renee Fossen, President of the Bench and Bar Foundation, and co-chair of the Bench and Bar Benefit Committee. The Bench and Bar Benefit was held earlier this month and raised more than $48,000 this time. Half of the proceeds will be given to SMRLS today. The other half will be distributed in the spring to other law-related charitable organizations. I'd like to thank the Bench and Bar Benefit Committee, including my co-chair, Karen Boysen, for all their work in making the event a success this year. The Ramsey County Bar Association and Foundation value our relationship with SMRLS and are thrilled to continue to support the work you do. I'm pleased to present you with a check in the amount of $24,223.
Okay, this is the last thing before the star of the show comes up here. Joe Schmit will be joining us in a few moments. My name is Candace Miller Lopez. I'm the Director of Development for SMRLS. And in that role, I've had the privilege of witnessing the incredible impact that our corporate partners and firm partners have on our mission. Today, we are celebrating 2 such partners. And to express our heartfelt gratitude for whose unwavering support has been instrumental to our journey. I'd like to invite our friends Dan Iden from 3M, Ann Huntrods and John Degnan from Taft Law Firm to join me on the stage. Since 1988, 3M has been a beacon of support, consistently working alongside us to make our state a better place. Their commitment to our cause has been nothing short of transformative. Taft Law Firm, since 1991, has stood as a steadfast partner. Come on up, people. Join me. Let the sun shine on you. Come on. Their enduring dedication has been a cornerstone of our success, exemplifying the power of long-term collaborations. Today, 3M and Taft, your support is a shining example of what can be achieved when we come together as a community. You inspire us all, and we are profoundly grateful for your commitment. Each of these 2 community partners has contributed more than $1 million to SMRLS over the course of their relationships with us. And we need to acknowledge that today and offer them a very hearty round of applause. You'd like to say anything? You're welcome to do so.
On behalf of the Taft Law Firm, AKA or FKA Briggs and Morgan, we want to express our appreciation to SMRLS. We've had a long and wonderful relationship with SMRLS. In fact, I was talking to Bruce Beneke today, and he said that when he first started, the one firm he remembers being involved in supporting SMRLS was Briggs and Morgan. So we go back a long way, not just with contributions monetarily, but also with a lot of volunteer effort from our lawyers working with the wonderful people at SMRLS. But this is really a celebration of what it's a recognition of, and it's that we recognize what incredible work the lawyers and staff at SMRLS do. And we're happy to have been able to help them. And their work, I think, is best captured in a beautiful poem that was one of my favorites from Emerson, the last line of which is, to know that you have made even one life breathe easier
because you have lived, that is to have succeeded. And that measurement for SMRLS means that over 115 years, they've been successful. And for a long time in the future, with all of our support, they'll continue to be successful. So we thank you and we value your relationship.
Hi, everyone. Thanks. I'll be very brief. No poem for me. I'm very proud of the partnership that 3M has had with SMRLS, and very honored to accept this award on behalf of 3M. And all I can say is hopeful and looking forward to the next 115 years and the next $1 million. So we're happy to continue to support you.
So that.
Thank you all. That was incredible. Well, now I have the pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker, Joe Schmit. We even spell our names the same, but we're not related. Joe is a man who's had a front row seat at some of the greatest sports events in history. He has interviewed the biggest names, covered the biggest events, and turned in some of the biggest expense accounts in TV history. He's won 19 Emmys. He's Minnesota Speakers Hall of Fame. He's written 3 books, Silent Impact, The Impact Blueprint, and most recently a children's book featuring his friend and Baseball Hall of Famer, Joe Mauer. Brace yourself for impact. Please welcome Joe Schmit.
Thank you so much for the introduction. There's one more thing I want to add to that introduction. I recently became a certified grief counselor. You see, I'm used to dealing with pain and agony. I've covered Minnesota professional sports for the past 3 decades. That's a lot of pain and agony. I'm going to start off today by just thanking you. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for caring. Thank you for the impact that you have in the community. One small act of change does lead to a lot of impact. I know just a little bit enough about being a lawyer to be dangerous. I'm married to a retired family law lawyer, and I understand the pressure and stress that is on you. And because of that, I behave very well, because one misstep, she'd get it all. She'd get it all. Let me start you off with a question. If there were a going away party tonight at your office, or maybe a group or organization you belong to, who would the most people show up for? Who would have the biggest turnout for a going away party? We did research on companies and organizations, small, medium, and large, looking for this individual and trying to figure out what traits they had that set them apart. And we didn't always find this person in the usual places. It wasn't always the person who sat in the corner office who was having the big impact. Sometimes it was the person who cleaned the corner office. But in each and every case, this person had 3 traits in common: purpose, persistence, and passion. Purpose, they aligned their actions with their values. Persistence, they were persistent in their positivity. And passion, they were the heart and soul of the operation because they simply cared. They didn't only cared about you as a coworker, but they cared about you as a human being too. They wanted to be there to support you when things went well, and definitely to be there when things were not going well. When you put them all together, you get what I call an impact player. Now, when I talk about an impact player on my highly rated sports shows on Channel 5, okay, they're not that highly rated. My ratings are so bad, I'm in the witness protection program, and they haven't found me yet. That's how bad my ratings are. But when I talk about an impact player in sports, what does an impact player do? An impact player makes everybody on the field of play better when they're out there. Well, you can be an impact player too when you become more aware and intentional with the impact that you have. Now, I know I'm sitting in a very smart room here today, but I want to see just how smart this room is. On the count of three, could everybody say out loud, loud and proud, what color a yield sign is? 1, 2, 3. Heard a lot of yellow. They've been red and white since 1974. Now, why do I bring that up? I bring that up because sometimes we have things in our head that we think might be right, but might not be right anymore. Something that worked 10 years ago might not work anymore. Something that worked 5 years ago or even a year ago might not work anymore. That's why we all have to be so aware and intentional with the impact that we have. Let's start off with purpose, aligning your actions with your values. And I'm going to start off with purpose, telling a story about a guy who I think everybody in this room probably knows in one form or fashion. Joe Mauer of the Minnesota Twins. This summer, Joe Mauer went into the Baseball Hall of Fame on the first ballot. Joe is a superstar athlete, but also a superstar person. 23 years ago, Joe was a senior at Cretin-Derham Hall High School in St. Paul, not too far from this hotel right here today. Every day after Joe's fourth-hour class, Joe walked a young student to the lunchroom, arm in arm, and invited them to sit down at his table. The kid's name was Mike Hawley. He happened to be blind and normally ate alone. But Joe saw this and he decided to invite him to sit down at his table. Now you got to imagine whatever table Joe Mauer sat at 23 years ago was the cool table because Joe was the big man on campus. He was simply the best high school athlete the state of Minnesota's ever produced. He was recruited by every major college football program to be their starting quarterback. He was an all-state guard in basketball, led his team to the state basketball tournament. But baseball was Joe's best sport. And with the very first pick in the amateur baseball draft, the Minnesota Twins, the hometown team, took Joe Mauer out of Cretin-Derham Hall High School. Joe was tall, good-looking, and soon to be very rich. I'd take any of those three for 10 minutes. But Joe did this. And I started thinking, did this have an impact on anybody else? I'd like to call it silent impact. And in your profession, what you do in the community really aligns with silent impact because we make our biggest impressions when we're not trying to be impressive. Let me say that again. We make our biggest impressions when we're not trying to be impressive. So I found 6 guys who sat around that table every day with Joe and Mike 23 years ago. And then the stories started to come in as I talked to them. They said Joe would walk Mike to his next class once lunch was over to make sure Mike got there okay. By the end of the first quarter, the guys at that table would fight over who had the privilege of walking Mike to his next class. Wednesdays was pizza day at Cretin-Derham Hall. And Mike would invariably spill some crumbs on his clothing, some pizza sauce in his chin or his cheek. Joe Mauer would nonchalantly grab a napkin, wipe him off, brush him off, and get him ready for his next class. By the end of the first quarter, they were all doing this. These are high school kids, the most selfish creatures on God's green earth. But Joe was having an impact. And the impact he had was real. It was powerful. It was profound. It was contagious. And it lasted a long, long time. That impact is still being felt today. I know that for a fact. And here's proof.
What did it mean to you to have Joe say, come and join us at our table?
It felt empowering, like I belonged.
Mike is blind. and he was not getting a lot of invitations to lunch.
Yes, as my father was fond of saying, he kind of took me under his wing.
He took you under his wing. Guess what? He wants to reconnect with you, and he's here right now.
Hey, Mike, how you doing, man?
Good, how are you?
Good to see you. It's been
Good to
too
see
long.
you, yes.
2 decades later, a reunion.
I was gonna say, now what are you doing? with
Yeah,
yourself?
well, I got 3 kids now. I have twin daughters.
In the same lunchroom, at the same table,
I remember you had to catch a red-eye flight from Anaheim.
with 2 old friends.
You know, I always could count on that pool table my senior year as the place where I wanted to sit, which was nice.
It was like, hey, you want to come? We're going to the same place. Let's go down there. And then it turned into every day.
Oh,
You know,
yes,
it doesn't
yes.
seem like too long ago since we were here.
If more athletes followed his example, there'd be a lot fewer lonely kids without someone to eat with.
You treat people how you want to be treated. You treat people with respect, and usually that's returned. Same thing. Mike showed me that same respect.
Thank you for the time you put in and the kindness you showed for the short year we did have together. And I'm a better person for it.
Well, Mike, I can say the same thing.
That one small random act of kindness is still resonating today. There was a young lady who read the story in the book Silent Impact who was so inspired by what she saw. She started a charity in Elk River called Thumbs Up for Mental Health to help high school kids and junior high kids struggling with mental health to have a safe place to go, somewhere they belong. They are now in 3 school districts in the North Metro and the Twin Cities. We made a video of Joe and Mike's reunion. It has now been seen in over 20,000 schools throughout the country. They have a program going on called No One Sits Solo. So you never know when the impact you make can have this effect. It continues to go on. I was approached by my publisher to write a book about Joe and Mike. And we decided, I met with Joe and his wife, Maddie, we decided to make it a children's book. You know, when I asked Joe, I said, why did you do this 23 years ago? Joe's answer was simple, but yet very profound. He said, because it was the right thing to do. That has become the name of the book. 100% of the proceeds go to 2 charities, one being the Highland Friendship Club in St. Paul, Joe's favorite charity, and the other one, Thumbs Up for Mental Health. We also have this book. Different companies and organizations have now donated this book to over 1,200 elementary schools. So the beat goes on and on. But as they say in the infomercials, but wait, there's more. This is confidential, but I'll tell this room. You're under an NDA. This book is now being turned into a musical by a major children's theater in the Twin Cities, and it will be announced this spring. So it continues to go on, and we have a documentary team who wants to document what's going on. Now, we all don't have the bandwidth of Joe Mauer. We're all not Hall of Fame baseball players, and we're all not world famous. But we do have the groups of people who we can have an impact on and people we can change when we're more aware and intentional with our impact. If we take one more step, just imagine if you're sitting in this room at SMRLS here 1 year from now, and you decide to make one more positive, intentional impact every single day. I know you make a lot of them already, but you take the time to make one more. Just imagine how much happier and healthier you'll be when you sit in this room 1 year from today. You'll have deeper, more meaningful relationships. You will be so much more productive than you've ever been before, because that's the way it works out. A couple of real life examples of people who are aware and intentional. A nurse at Children's Hospital during the pandemic. She noticed that the kids that they had been taking care of were all of a sudden afraid of all the doctors and nurses and staff because they were wearing masks and shields, and it was hazmat suits in the early days of COVID. Well, one of the nurses decided on the 4th floor at Children's Hospital to take everybody's picture with a big smiling face. And over the weekend, she made everybody new name tags with a big smiling face. And she handed them out on Monday when she got back to work. And when they started taking care of the kids, they would point to the smiling face and point to their face that was all masked up. It changed everything. The pressure, the stress was now off. That was on Monday. By Friday, the entire hospital had new name tags with big smiling faces on. I did a presentation for Anytime Fitness, and Anytime Fitness, they have so much loyalty in their business that because they guarantee their people you'll never miss a monumental moment of their lives. They are that people-centric. If they have so much loyalty, they have 4,000 of their employees that have the logo of their company somewhere on their body. Does anybody here have the logo of your company or your firm on your body? I was doing one thing, a guy in the back, he said, I'm not getting my company on my body. I said, why is that? He said, I work for a porta potty company. I said, I understand. Purpose, align your actions with your values, and you can make an impact. Persistent. You also need to be persistent in your positivity and persistent in your preparation. In your business, if you're not prepared, obviously, you're not going to be able to help the people you want to help. But when you're persistent in your positivity, it makes it a lot easier. I like to live by the 90-10 rule. Have you ever heard of the 90-10 rule? It goes like this. I think if we all look at our lives, 90% of our lives are good, if not great. And all of us have a little mess. All of us have something at 10% we'd like to change. Where people lose their positivity, where people get out of whack is when they spend 90% of their time on the 10%. Spend 90% of your time on the positive stuff. That will help you stay persistent in your positivity, and you'll be the kind of person people will want to be around. I covered a track coach at the University of Minnesota by the name of Roy Griak. Now, Roy had a very long, successful career as the University of Minnesota men's track and field coach. He coached Big Ten champs. He coached national champs. He coached athletes who competed in the Olympics. Roy stayed on in the program as a volunteer even after he retired into his 90s. As Roy was getting ready to pass, I started reading some tributes to Roy on his Caring Bridge site, and I recognized a lot of the names. They were the Big Ten champs. They were the national champs. They were the Olympians. But as I was reading these tributes, something struck me. Not one of them said, I was an Olympian because I came to the University of Minnesota. Remember that Big Ten championship we won? Not one of them. They all said things like, I'm a better husband today because you were my coach. I'm a better man today because I went to the University of Minnesota. I just closed the biggest business deal of my life using Roy Griak 101. And it got me to thinking, Roy Griak lived a life of significance. Not because of the champions he coached and not because of the trophies he had in the trophy case. He lived a life of significance because of the impact he had on other people. You see, he put people over performance. And guess what the byproduct was? People became great performers. He had trophies in his trophy case. When you put people first, the byproduct is all that stuff too many people shoot for. Be persistent in your positivity. You also need to be persistent in your preparation. How many of you remember these? On the count of three, what are they? 1, 2, 3. Zubas. Does anybody in this room still have a pair of Zubas? Raise your hand loud and proud. All right. We have a few of you out there. Yeah, these are mine. They are hard to give up. Now, Zubas were invented in the late 80s and early 90s by a couple of guys who ran a weightlifting gym in Roseville, Minnesota. Now, this wasn't just like an Anytime Fitness. This was a gym for big, bulky, powerlifting, bodylifting, bending iron kind of guys. And these guys just didn't like the sweatpants that you could buy at Target or Costco or Sam's Club, wherever you bought your stuff. And one of the guys knew how to sew, so he sewed himself a pair of these goofy Zubas pants. Well, the next thing he knew, everybody in the gym wanted them. So he had to sew them, and everybody in the gym wore them. Well, these guys were no dummies. They decided to start a business. And in the early 1990s, they got professional athletes to wear it. The Road Warriors, a professional wrestling team, was wearing it. They got a contract with the U.S. Army. And in the early 90s, these guys were doing over $100 million of business a year out of their gym in Roseville, Minnesota, selling these goofy pants. But I'm not here to talk about their business success. I'm here to talk about their tagline. Their tagline on Zubaz was, Zubaz, dare to be different. And if you wore these to church, you were daring to be different. But the reason I like that is I think sometimes if we want to make change, we got to get a little more fearless than fearful. I think sometimes we play it too safe. And if you're playing it too safe, you're not making any changes. You are in cruise control. You got to get out of your comfort zone. I just read a book called The Comfort Crisis. I don't know if anybody else here has read it. In the Japanese culture, they have something called a masagi. Every year they do something that pushes them either physically, mentally, or both to a new level, to push their game to the next level, to get out of that comfort zone. My wife and I just happened to do it. I read the book and she thought it was crazy. We went whitewater rafting for 3 days down the Snake River in Idaho. We slept in a tent. I hadn't slept in a tent in 50 years. My idea of roughing it is the hotel doesn't have HBO, but we roughed it and we got uncomfortable, but we broke new ground. If you're too comfortable, you're more fearful than fearless. You might make a mistake when you're fearless, but you'll learn from that mistake. Everybody bear with me. Fold your hands like this. Okay, now put the top thumb on top and the bottom thumb on bottom. Just that little move right there is just a little bit uncomfortable, isn't it? Just a little bit uncomfortable. Well, that's kind of a good metaphor for change. If you're not a little bit uncomfortable, you are not taking your game to the next level. I also say you've got to be persistent in your preparation. People who have this, I call it, it's almost an impact gene. They are more aware and intentional. It's part of their DNA. For Joe Mauer, it's part of his DNA. He sees things that other people don't see. We all get so busy that sometimes we walk right past people, not realizing that the person sitting next to you that day just needs somebody to acknowledge them, to value them, to let them know they care. And that's going to help them get through that day. When you're a person of impact, you are more aware and you notice that. And sometimes it's just a comment. Sometimes it's just making them feel that they belong and they're not invisible. So I cover the Minnesota Vikings, which means if you have a Super Bowl party this year, you can probably invite me. I won't be busy. Just one of these years, right? So it was the year that Denny Green had become the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. His first training camp, we had a show Sunday night, it's called Sports Wrap, and we had lined up Denny Green to be on our show on the very first night of training camp, Sunday night at 10:35. So we had our satellite truck, we had 3 cameras, we lit up Blakesley Stadium on the University of Minnesota Mankato campus. The field was going to be our backdrop, and we were going to have the coach for the entire half hour. About 5 minutes before the show started, a high school kid who was working that summer as a ball boy decided to come out and work out at the stadium. And I said to my guys, I said, I know exactly what that kid did. He called his buddies and he said, hey, watch Channel 5 tonight, because whenever there's a shot of Denny Green, you're going to see me in the background running up and down the stairs working out. And sure enough, every time we had that shot of Denny Green, there's that kid running up and down those stairs. I thought, well, you little. Now, the next night, we're still in Mankato. And tonight, I'm doing my sportscast in front of Gage Hall. It was the old dormitory where the Vikings stayed at. That was right here. The football stadium we had gone live at the night before is right here. And the hotel that I was staying in was right here. So I got done doing the sports at about 10:35, helped the guys rep up the cables, put the cameras away, and I started walking back towards the hotel. And as I got to the football stadium, there were no lights on in the football stadium. There was not a head coach anywhere to be found. And all of a sudden I heard, I go and I look, and on a moonlit night, there's that kid working out just as hard as he had the night before when the cameras were on. I had it all wrong. Most of you in this room know who this kid is. His name is Larry Fitzgerald Jr., who went to the Arizona Cardinals and went on to become one of the best wide receivers in National Football League history. Good enough isn't good enough if you want to be the best. If you want to be the best, you have to be the best at preparation. Be persistent in your positivity. Be persistent in your preparation. And you can be this impact player. Last but not least is passion. Passion. Think about anybody you know in your profession who's successful, who makes differences, who can make the change we're talking about. I guarantee you, they are people of great passion. I married my wife because she's the most passionate person I know. Just the other night, I came home and she's sitting with a big glass of wine. And she says, I love you. I don't know how I made it all these years without you. I said, honey, I love you too, but are you sure that's not the wine talking? She says, yes, I'm sure. I was talking to the wine. I heard about a nun from northern Minnesota, was just a prime example of somebody who had passion, somebody whose purpose was well known. She was persistent in her positivity, and she had that gene I'm talking about. Her name was Sister Helen Morosla. So I put my reporter's cap on looking for Sister Helen. And unfortunately, I found her. I found her in the obituary section of the Brainerd Dispatch. It said that Sister Helen was born in 1935. She became a Catholic nun. She taught in Catholic schools in Minnesota, Kentucky, and Texas. She lived a life of servitude. She passed away in the year 2000. But what it didn't say was the impact that Sister Helen had back then and the impact she is still having today because of one small positive move she made. Sister Helen was teaching third grade in a Catholic school in Morris, Minnesota, in north central Minnesota. When into her classroom walks a young kid by the name of Mark Eklund. Now, Mark's a pretty good kid. He came from a big family. He talked way too much. At one time, Sister put some Scotch tape over his mouth to get him to shut up. That didn't work. They laughed about it. We fast forward a couple of years, and Sister's now in the Catholic school, high school, teaching math. And into her classroom walks Mark Eklund, a little taller, a little more handsome, still a little bit of a troublemaker, but they had a great relationship. Well, one week, Sister was trying to teach this math class, a new math concept, and the kids were just not getting it. The atmosphere in the classroom was wrong, and Sister knew she had to change it. So she told everybody, take out a sheet of paper. So the kids all took out a sheet of paper, and they thought, oh, no, we got a pop quiz coming here. And Sister said, no pop quiz. Here's your assignment. For the rest of the hour, I want you to write down the nicest thing you can say about each and every one of your classmates. You've known each other since you were in first grade. You went all the way through the Catholic school system. Well, the kids got right on the assignment, and when the bell rang, they all turned in their papers. And over the weekend, Sister compiled everybody an individual list of all the traits that people put down. On Monday, when the kids got back to school, Sister handed everybody out their list, and right away she could tell things had changed. People were comparing notes, they were laughing, they were smiling, and when she started teaching, the kids were all in. The atmosphere and the energy of the room had changed, and soon this math problem, which nobody understood on Friday, was understood by all on Monday. Sister thought, success. We fast forward a couple more years, and Sister's returning from vacation. She lands at the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport, and her dad picks her up for the ride back up to the convent in northern Minnesota. And on the ride back home, her dad says, honey, the Eklunds called. And Sister goes, oh, how is Mark? I've been thinking about him so much lately. And her dad says, honey, I'm so sorry to tell you this. Mark died in the Vietnam War. His funeral is tomorrow, and the family has asked you to come. Well, Sister was devastated. And of course, she went to the funeral. And at his gravesite, where he got a 21-gun salute, a young soldier approached Sister and said, "Were you Mark's math teacher?" And she said, "Yes, I was." He said, "I served with Mark in Vietnam. He talked about you a lot." Sister was stunned. The family had invited everybody out to the family farm after the funeral to finish the celebration of Mark Eklund's life. They were going to serve lunch. And his sister was having lunch, reacquainting herself with some of the kids she taught who are now adults. Mark's parents approached Sister Helen. They said the Army had sent back Mark's belongings, and they wanted her to see something. Out of a plastic bag, they pulled out a wallet. And out of that wallet, they pulled out a tattered, crinkled piece of paper with yellowed Scotch tape on it. It was the list. Mark had carried the list with him to his dying day. Soon some of Mark's classmates gathered round. One said, "I have my list. It's in my wedding album." Another one said, "I have my list. It's in my sock drawer." A third, a gentleman, pulled out his wallet and pulled out a tattered, crinkled piece of paper. They all had their list. Sister wrote an article for a religious education magazine trying to inspire young teachers to show passion, to care about the kids, to get to know them, to connect on levels deeper than normal. And she told the story about the list. And as fate would have it, it got picked up online. It ended up in Reader's Digest. It ended up in one of the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. And Sister became somewhat of a mini celebrity in the convent in northern Minnesota. Before she died, she gave one interview. And she was asked, what was the lesson you were trying to teach those kids so long ago? She said, well, there were really two lessons. One, you can always find something nice to say about everybody. And two, we all need to praise more, condemn less. Praise more, condemn less. The message from Sister Helen's list is alive and kicking today. I know that for a fact because I was able to find 6 of Mark Eklund's classmates. All 6 said they either still had the list or they remember every single word on the list. All 6 said if they had to name the most influential people in their life, Sister Helen would be high on their list. And all 6 said they taught the lessons onto their kids and now onto their grandkids. Vicki McNally stood on her list. She was funny. She was a good athlete. And she had nice long legs. Judy Swanson said on her list, she was good at art. She was loyal. And she had luscious lips. So we know the hormones were raging for at least one of the kids in Sister Helen's class. Jim Halby was not at Mark Eklund's funeral. He had a pretty good excuse. He was half a world away fighting in the war in Vietnam himself. And in his wallet was the list. And I said, Jim, why did you take that list with you halfway around the world? And he said he was packing the night before and he was scared to death. And I saw the list on my dresser and I said to myself, I'll put it in my wallet. In case I have a bad day, I can look at it in Vietnam. It might make me feel better. I had a lot of bad days. We make our biggest impressions when we're not trying to be impressive. And that impact we have is real, it's powerful, it's profound, it's contagious, and it can last a long, long time. It can be positive or it can be negative. That's your choice. That's your choice. So I started thinking of different ways to be more aware and intentional with our impact. What if you could build a monument to the 4 most influential, impactful people in your life? What if you could build your own personal Mount Rushmore of influence? Who would be on your Mount Rushmore and why would they be there? I do this exercise with a lot of clients that I work with, and I tell people you can't put your parents on the list. It's too easy. That's way too easy. But when you think about maybe somebody who helped you sit in this room today, somebody maybe you haven't contacted in a while, and then go back and contact them and thank them. It's called the second thank you, when you go back and acknowledge them for something they did. And if you really want to have fun, this is Thanksgiving week. I have some of these back at the back desk, back there where I have some of the books in the Mauer book if anybody's interested. But I have Mount Rushmore. Come pick a couple of these up. Do you want to have some fun over Thanksgiving when you're sitting with your family instead of talking about normal things? Have the kids, have the grandkids, have everybody fill out their Mount Rushmore of influence. You'll have a tremendous conversation because that's the way it works out. You know, I did this presentation to 400 Minnesota prison guards, and I was working with them for 3 hours. And much like many in this room, it's a group that is very underappreciated for what they do. I happened to talk to them 2 months after the second prison guard in Minnesota lost his life in the line of duty. I had 400 angry, upset people who felt nobody cared, people who felt they were invisible. And I thought, how in the world am I ever going to connect with them to help them through this tough time? Well, we did the Mount Rushmore of influence exercise. And I had them do it at their table, and I had people talk back and forth. Quite frankly, it's a pretty good team building exercise because you'll get to understand what makes people tick a little bit and who influenced them. So I said, does anybody here in the room want to share somebody on their Mount Rushmore? Way in the back of the room, a young prison guard by the name of Mark Magnuson raised his hand. And he said, yes, my brother Tim is on my list, but Tim didn't go on until he passed away. I said, well, I'm very sorry. I said, please explain. He said, he grew up in northern Minnesota. He said, we had a big family. I could have put any of my brothers or sisters on there. They were great people. We played a lot of sports together. We're all pretty good athletes. But he said, Tim was special. And he said, what made Tim special was he was really good at connecting with people. That was his superpower. Each and every one in this room has a superpower. Use it. Use what you got to get what you want. Tim's superpower was connecting. He ended up taking a job in Columbus, Ohio. And when Columbus was awarded a National Hockey League franchise, the Columbus Blue Jackets, Tim, being from the state of hockey, wanted to get a part-time job with the team so he could see free hockey. He ended up getting a job as the elevator operator on game day. But he didn't run just any elevator. He ran the VIP elevator. It was for the players' families, all the execs, all the big shots in Columbus. But Tim wasn't just the kind of guy push buttons on the elevator. He learned how to push people's buttons in a positive way. He had nicknames for the players. He knew everybody's name. He had treats for the kid. He became part of the team. Unfortunately, Tim was diagnosed with ALS. And the franchise made accommodations for Tim to work as long as he was physically able to do. When Tim passed on, Mark and the family went down to Columbus for the celebration of his life. And about a half hour before the funeral started, a bus pulled up. It was the Columbus Blue Jackets hockey team. They had just gotten back from a 7-day road trip. They had made a special stop to come and pay honor to the guy who ran the elevator. He goes, that's when Tim went on my Mount Rushmore. But he said, Joe, you gave me goosebumps today. Remember when I said we were all pretty good athletes? He said, Tim was the best of the bunch. As a matter of fact, Tim earned a Division I scholarship to run track at the University of Minnesota for a coach by the name of Roy Briack. If you make one more positive intentional impact every day for a year, I challenge you to come back into this room and tell me you haven't changed. And what sometimes I even suggest is if you're a journalist, if you journal, or even if you don't, write down what you did that day. Because when you're having a bad day, you can be like Jim Halby. You can look back at what you've done and realize I'm not that bad of a person after all. That takes that 10% away that we talked about earlier. And I'll leave you with this. Besides one more big thank you for what you do. Besides that, the secret to what I've learned studying people to make an impact is pretty simple. It's really the intersection of two human traits. We all want to be liked and we all want to leave a legacy. So why wouldn't we work just a little bit harder at making that type of impact? And last but not least is this. It's not about them liking you. No, that's not it at all. The secret is it's about them liking themselves. And if you were the person that helped make that happen, someday when they're asked who's on their Mount Rushmore of influence, your name will go up there and be honored in that way. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and continue your great work. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. That was terrific. In the spirit of Thanksgiving, what a great message. Hope all of you have a great holiday and continue to strive to serve your clients and those who need help. And we'll see you here next year. Have a great Thanksgiving, everybody.